Hi, it's Nicole from Snazzy Scrappin', and today I was just going to show you how I make my blender backgrounds. So today we'll be using squeezed lemonade, fossilized amber, carved pumpkin, candied apple, seedless preserves, chipped sapphire and black soot. And they're in the distressed oxide range. So I have three of Michelle's silhouette dies that we'll be using today. And I've just cut those out of black cardstock, which I've adhered jack paper off the roll, which Michelle sells, onto the back. The only other tools I'll be using today is I've cut a circle of just plain photocopy paper out of a circle die to use as a mask, some temporary tape which will adhere the circle, and just a little offcut of some laminating that I was doing, which I find useful to hold the paper to stop your fingers getting inky when you're using so much ink. And of course the beautiful blender brushes from Snazzy Scrappin' that Michelle stocks. They blend really well. Okay, let's get into it. So depending on what length of border you've got at the bottom, there's no need to start right at the very bottom of the page. And I always start with the lightest colour first. The most important thing with blending is that you have a really super juicy ink pad. It just tends to blend so much better when it's super juicy. So you could either use the re-inkers or perhaps the Distress Refresher Spray if you don't have the re-inkers, just to make that little bit more juicy. That one's super juicy, never mind. And the main thing is you just continually go back and forth between your colours. So excuse my arm going in and out of the shot. Being left-handed is a bit of a pain. The orange is probably slightly too wet, but that's okay. Put a little bit of the carved pumpkin, which is slightly... Fossilized amber and carved pumpkin are quite similar in colour. Could probably get away with just using either one. You wouldn't have to use both of them. And we'll bring in the candied apple. The other thing you can do also is, rather than have just straight lines, you can arch them to make it look more of like a, perhaps a sunset on a hillside or something. Here's the lining strip, which helps just hold it in position, and you don't tend to get fingerprints in your work then as well. You don't have to have a separate brush for every colour. I do have a lot of brushes. I just find when doing techniques like this, it's good to have separate brushes so you're not continually drying it off and getting rid of the colour, and you don't cross-contaminate your ink pads. Okay, then we bring in some chipped sapphire at the top. blend that out with the seedless preserves. I might change my mat actually because it's a bit of a hot mess, isn't it? There we go. You can see that a little bit better now. Might actually put a little bit more red in it. The basic thing is you just keep going back and forth, blending all the colours until you get the effect that you want. The other thing I was going to say is as they're water reactive inks, if they happen to get wet, once you've created your card, if the card panel happens to get wet, it will actually affect your work. It will leave watermarks. So the thing that I like to do is once you've completed the actual card panel and you're happy with the finish, you can actually gently buff it with some Vaseline, and that sort of puts like a waterproof protective layer over the top. It actually brings out the vibrancy a little bit more. I'll show you shortly the difference of the what the Vaseline actually does. And I'll just finish the top off with a slight bit of black soot just to darken the very top of the night sky. And again, I'll go back to the last colour used, which was the Chip Sapphire, and just blend that in. So the main thing is add a colour, blend it with the next one, just keep going back and forth until you get the desired effect. Maybe a little bit more black soot. Also remember, if you're actually wanting to cut the panel down once you've done it, and say you're trying to use a border die and you're wanting to cut it down, keep that in mind when you're doing, say, a black edging or something, because if you cut it out and it's considerably smaller, you're going to lose all of that effect. You can either cut them out beforehand, or you can use a full card panel and then cut them out afterwards. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I think that's okay. I might just grab a new mat so we can see what we're doing. There you go, and I'll get the Vaseline. So I actually just use the old foam style mini blenders. I just pop it into the Vaseline. Just give a really good coating on the sponge and sort of, you can either dab or just do gentle swirls. Just put quite a firm coating on all over. Actually, I was actually going to do half to show you the difference, but it doesn't matter. I've done it all now. Okay. So once you've done that, as I said, just circle motions. Then just get a microfiber cloth Just gently buff it. I think it sort of gets rid of the chalky bit of the oxide inks. And it really makes the colours seem a lot more vibrant and brighter. I should have my thing. You don't actually have to wait. I find I don't wait until the inks are dry. I can just blend straight over. So that's your finished card. Then let's put this one in there. As we added the jack paper to the back of the silhouette, you can just trim this off, pull this off. The jack paper, I find, sticks fine over the vaseline. Some glues tend to be a little bit difficult. I use the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and it sticks perfectly on if you've used the Vaseline, but some other glues do have a bit of difficulty sticking, so keep that in mind when you're if you choose to use the Vaseline. But as I said, the jack paper that Michelle stocks is really good, and it sticks fine and it doesn't lift off. So line it up. It's just a little bit overhanging from the end, which I'll trim off. The other thing you can do is apply the silhouette and then do the Vaseline over the top of that, and it actually brings the black cardboard, it gives a beautiful finish to the black cardboard. It tends to darken the, so you can either do it beforehand or do the whole entire panel afterwards. I'll just buff that and show you the So if you're wanting to, say, hit emboss the sentiment, I wouldn't use the Vaseline until after you've done that, because it won't, I guess because this is sticky, it acts sort of almost like the Versamark. So if you were to emboss, all the embossing powder would stick to the whole thing. Okay, then I'll just trim this end off. Back soon. Okay, so all that you'd have to do then is adhere that to card base, and that would be your card. The only other thing I was going to show you today is using a mask as, say, a sunset. So you could do a moon or a sun as a silhouette. So I've gone ahead and actually cut out, I've inked the yellow and let it dry just so the mask will actually stick, because if you're trying to stick it onto wet ink, it's obviously not going to stick. Just used, you can use masking paper or stick-it notes. For mask, for things like this, I just find that a bit of copy paper and the temporary tape works really well. So we're going to probably use similar colours to what we used in our last blended background. I just used the squeeze lemonade on the sun, and just keep referring back to your silhouette and So that helps in deciding, you know, where you want your colours and how you want them to lay and where you have to start at the bottom of the page or what have you. The blender brushes are really, really good to get a beautiful even blend, I find. Some people have success with these sort. I've never had success. I find the blender brushes have really changed my ability to blend. Michelle has 3 sizes, small, medium and large available. I think these are the small. And I like them because you can still cover a good size area, but you can then use them for smaller techniques if you're wanting to do finer detail, say on a flower or something like that. Red. I've actually color coded my blender brushes just to make sure that you don't cross contaminate. If you do have separate ones, that there's no cross contamination between the your colors. It's okay if you're going with a light brush into a dark color, but it's really bad if you change and you put a dark color into your light ink. Again, go to the last color and blend it. You might have to do it 3 or 4 times until you get the desired effect. There's really no rhyme or reason as to how many times you'd need to do it, just until you're happy with the effect. Might actually bring the red down a little bit. I think I've gone too high for that. You can always change your mind, and that's why I like the distress inks as well, because you can go over the previous colours and build up your layers. Just a smidge of black again. The good thing is, if you're using a mask, you've actually got a handhold, something to hold on to without putting your fingerprints through your ink, which helps. So see how I've just done a mistake and I've just put a huge blob of navy where I didn't really want it. That's okay. Just get your seedless preserves and we'll just go over the top. Normally I've got my head straight over the top, but because I've got the camera there, I can't do that today. Okay, that'll do. So this part I love. This is the best part. Revealing the okay. So obviously I thought it was dry, but obviously it wasn't. And the temporary tape, which doesn't normally do that, it's actually peeled some of the card off, but that's okay. Because what I'm going to do, I have the mask, the opposite mask from the circle that I cut out. And I'll pop that on back. Okay, so I'll just pop that over there. And then we'll get the yellow, squeeze lemonade, and just see if I can, oh, there we go. No one will be any the wiser. Plus, I guess it won't matter because we're putting the silhouette over the top. Okay, so we'll peel off the backing and pop silhouette on. Okay. I'm actually going to use a border die on this, so I'll cut it out and I'll be back. Okay, I'll just quickly show you the difference with only half of it. I don't know if you can, might turn that light off and see if you can. It's quite late here in the afternoon, so you mightn't be able to see it, but it definitely brightens and intensifies some, and particularly the black. I'm not sure if you can see the black, but anyway, so that would look really effective on a card panel as well. Rather than bore you through watching all of the blending so far, I've decided to come downwards to the other way. It's a bit like watching paint dry, isn't it? Watching someone blend. I'll do a bit more and I'll come back. So the jack paper off this one. I'll just trim it and come back. Okay. Just done the vaseline trick again with this one. It may leave a fingerprint just after you've buffed it, but within a couple of minutes it tends to soak into the cardstock and not leave fingerprints. But that's the finished card. Okay, so we're ready to mount the card, and I just do my usual trick of folding back a little tab on opposite corners and a little bit in the middle. Double-sided tape. That way you can position it until you've got it centered and in the middle. Let's fold it back in. Once you've got it in the position that you're happy with, just push down in the middle and do the 4 sides. And there's your card. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.